The Orioles did subtract from their bullpen at this deadline. The Gregory Soto and Brian Baker trades, which we touched on in previous episodes, were part of that. But a big move they made in between games of a doubleheader against the Blue Jays on Wednesday sent Seranthony Dominguez to Toronto in exchange for right-hander Juaron Watts-Brown. Brown was at Double-A New Hampshire, and an odd coincidence, New Hampshire was at Chesapeake, also playing an Orioles affiliate. So both players just had to walk from one end of the ballpark to the other to join their new teams. Now, the Soto trade, I think, had gotten everybody's hopes up for what the return for Dominguez was going to look like, and rightfully so, because the Mets gave up a lot to get Soto, and Dominguez statistically having a better season than Soto. The splitter was a really effective offering for him that he added this year. The Orioles do not get as much back in this deal in terms of volume. There's no question about that. But in Watts-Brown, they get a guy who's put up pretty solid numbers at Double-A this year. So, Bob, I'll start with you. This probably isn't the deal that a lot of people thought the Orioles were going to get for Dominguez, at least in terms of the number of players coming back. But I think when you step back and look at it and you see a potential major league starter, mid to back end most likely, for half a year reliever, it's pretty good, especially when said starter is in Double-A now.
Yeah, it's a very good trade. I mean, this is the facts of the matter. And we're going to talk about this with the next trade too. The closer a guy is to major league ready, like the lower that ceiling is going to be for a guy like Seranthony Dominguez. I'm sure we could have gotten a DSL or low A guy or two that had a higher ceiling than a Juaron. God, there's a lot of names we have to learn. Watts-Brown. But this guy's in Double-A. He has a chance to be major league ready sometime in the second half of 2026. Yeah, it might be the ceiling of a 4 or 5 starter, but I mean, that's what you're going to get for a rental reliever. And yeah, I like it a lot. And I like how they kind of diversified what they went after. We got the DSL high ceiling guy. We got the Double-A guy that has a little bit lower of a ceiling, like Cameron Foster. We got that Mets trade for Soto. Man, they really overpaid. Arsenio, I like a lot. That's a higher ceiling, but he's in low A. So that's just the trade-off you're going to make when a trade deadline deal. And yeah, I'm a fan of what I've seen so far in my diving into the guys we got. Had a couple more days with Juaron Watts-Brown to try to figure out what we have on our hands here. Yeah, I'm a fan. He's going to be in my top 30 when we do our personal list coming up. I think he's worst case, he's a pretty solid relief prospect. He's got a nice slider, decent changeup. Fastball's about average. Maybe they can add the patented Orioles cutter or kick. They're always going to do the sweeper, kick change, cutter. They're going to mess around with things. And yeah, I like him. I think it's a good trade. Dominguez having a fantastic year, adding that splitter has added a whole new dimension to his game. But he was going to be gone in 2 months. So yeah, I'll take a guy that could be under control for 6 or 7 years and a potential starting pitcher. Yeah.
Another $1 million arm too. When the Blue Jays drafted him at a 2023, they picked him up. So not a 2024 guy, although there is one more that we're going to talk about later on. But 2023 draft pick out of Oklahoma State. Blue Jays gave him $1 million, about $200,000 above slot value because he had a really good year in the Cape Cod League, transferred to Oklahoma State and just piled up the strikeouts. He was like a top 50 draft pick on a lot of boards going into that draft class. But the fastball, like the metrics are there. The fastball velo is already up. It's into the mid 90s. It's plus induced vertical break. It's just like the fastball is not getting a ton of whiff. I know Lance Brzezowski put out all the data. It's really good. He's sitting 93.5 now, 19 inches of induced vertical break. Nearly 7 feet of extension. Like a lot of this stuff, a lot of those fastball metrics, you're like, that's what the Orioles are coveting right here lately. Look at the draft, look at who they're bringing in free agency, all this stuff. But he's just not getting the swing and miss with the fastball so far. And look, I'm not an expert at all in the pitch design and all this stuff. So I don't know how they're going to do it, but I imagine the Orioles targeting him. They see that, they see those numbers, and I imagine they have some tweaks in mind to get more swing and miss with the fastball. And he does have to throw more strikes. That's the other thing with him. It's improved. He's throwing more strikes this year. But it's still low. It's like what, 63% strike rate, 48% end zone rate. Yeah, both low numbers, but they are up from his first year as a pro. So he is improving. I'm excited to see him this year in Double A. I think he's going to start this weekend. So we'll see.
Sunday, I believe.
There you go. If you're close by to the Bay Sox game, you can see him in person. I will be tuned into that game for sure. This is one of the guys who is going to be in the top 30, I think, when we re-rank, because he's at the AA level already, having success. He could probably get a taste of AAA by the end of the year, but I imagine it's how much work do they want to do with him and his stuff first? Maybe they just go ahead and put all their touches on him now and let him just sit in Chesapeake for the rest of the year and work on that, get comfortable there. But next year, he's starting in Norfolk's rotation, right there on the cusp of the major leagues. Could be a guy late next year that gives you some starts if you need it. So again, another $1 million arm you're adding to this organization that probably could have went in the second round if he would have got more swing and miss with the fastball, and the walk rate would have not been as high as it was in college. You're talking about another potential late first round, second round draft pick that is now in the organization.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what the Orioles do with these pitchers, because I know when we had Chase McDermott on the show previously, and I think Cade Povitz said something similar during his appearance, the Orioles don't necessarily have a lot of time after the deadline to work with these guys to really make the big picture adjustments that they know they need to make. But a lot of work is going to go into that in the offseason and into spring training next year. So, Watts-Brown, I think if he gets a taste of Norfolk this year, it's probably late in the year. But I will be really fascinated to see going into camp next year what kind of adjustments he's made, because there's a lot to work with here, even if it does seem like the ceiling is limited, for him to get better. And right now, I think that looking at him, I see him as a back-end starter, maybe a long man, but you can bump that ceiling a little bit higher with some of the adjustments that you both just touched on that he could make.
That brings up the other point too, that the people who need to hear this aren't listening. That's okay. Especially with the pitchers, right? They are going to make changes with these guys. They're going to put their own touches, their own spin on these players. And you've got 5-6 weeks of minor league baseball left, AAA a little bit longer. There's not a lot of time. And these guys, their lives have been completely uprooted. And so now they have to change organizations who are going to change their repertoire and the way they do things. They're changing where they live. A lot is changing with these guys. And they're not sitting here with, not that it's easy for major leaguers at all that are getting moved. It's not. But I mean, these guys aren't established major leaguers. These are guys in the minor leagues grinding away who have had their lives uprooted now. And they have like 5 weeks at most to settle in and try to fit into this new organization and find instant success. If they do, great. But I look at it a lot like the guys who the Orioles just drafted that we are hopefully going to start seeing in the next week or two. If they have early success, great. But if not, I don't really put any stock into those first few weeks numbers. Like, I'm going to wait till next year to really dive into that draft class. Same with all these guys. If they start out and they have a couple of bad outings, of course, these guys are under a microscope. People are going to be paying attention, and that's going to be pointed out of how bad they're doing if that happens. I don't take much stock into what happens between now and 4 weeks from now, 5 weeks from now when the season's over. Let's wait till next year till we fully start to assess these guys and where they stand now in the organization.